It was the 3rd of June, 1981. It was a winter's day. It was a chilly day, and there was a sky that was perfectly blue, not a cloud to be seen, and the sun was shining in a way that its light warmed you. I was walking home from school in the sun, and I was 8 years old. And I was walking home alone from school, which was nothing unusual in 1981. It wasn't unusual to see a young boy walking the streets alone. Things were different back then. I got home and there were people at my house. There was a few cars and a friend of mine, Daryl, my age, sitting on the veranda outside of my house. Normally my mom would come and greet me at the door, but today we had visitors. A friend of my mom's, Auntie Patsy, came outside to greet me, and she said that my mom wasn't feeling well, that perhaps I should just wait outside while they looked after her, and they'd come back in to fetch me. My mom hadn't been well. My dad and her were going through a nasty divorce, and I knew the toll it was having on the both of them and on my brother and me. My mom would often faint, or she would sleep for days, sometimes unable to get out of bed to greet me. Auntie Patsy went back in and came back outside to tell me that my mom really wasn't doing well and that she needed to go to the hospital, and an ambulance was on its way. There were a few ladies milling around inside the house, and I didn't know who they were, and one of them came out to say to me, "Will I please wait on the pavement outside the house and direct the ambulance into the driveway so I knew where to go?" And I remember feeling quite excited to see the ambulance, to wave it in like an air traffic controller guiding in an airplane. The ambulance arrived and pulled into the driveway, and another lady came out and said that perhaps Daryl and I should go and get some food with her, that we should go and eat. So she suggested we walk with her to the local cafe. They had a fish and chip shop there, and we should get something to eat there. They used to serve the fish and chips in newspaper. Remember that? I used to love it there. We ate and I walked back home. The ambulance had gone and my mom was on her way to be looked after. I remember there were more cars that had arrived, and there were more people in and around the house, and I remember being confused as to why they were there. I got to the front door and a lady hugged me, and I hugged her back even though I had no idea who she was. And she said perhaps I should walk to my mom's room and go and see Auntie Patsy. I remember walking down the passageway, and it was a couple of meters long, and all these ladies that had appeared out of nowhere were standing on either side of the wall. And I felt like a prince walking through a row of guards. I sat down on the bed next to Auntie Patsy, and next to her were 2 crumpled tissues and 2 envelopes, one with my dad's name on it and one with my brother and my name on it. I can't remember what I felt, but I remember it happening. Auntie Patsy might have taken my hands, I don't know. But I remember her very gently telling me that my mother had taken an overdose, that she had found her when she had come to visit, and that my mom was dead. I can remember the crumpled tissues that were next to her on the bed were still damp with what I assume were my mom's tears. And in each of them was a diamond ring, one for my brother and one for me. It was all that was left of her, and a letter saying that she was sorry. I remember a few ladies crying, and I can remember my own tears filling my eyes, and it felt like they were coming from the pit of my stomach as I gasped and cried. And even at 8 years old, I knew what her death meant, that she was gone. At about that time, my brother arrived home from school. He's 5 years older than me. And I can remember running outside to grab onto him. He was already running down the driveway in tears, like he knew what was happening. And I remember I went and grabbed him and he held me. And I remember screaming at him, saying, "Mom is dead, Mom is dead," as we both fell to the floor. He was 12 and I was 8. And our mother had decided we weren't worth living for. The rest of the day was filled with people arriving, and photos of my mom were put on the coffee table in the lounge, and candles were lit next to them, and my brother and I sat silently on the couch while people who we never knew tried to say things to make us feel better. "Don't worry, my boy, your mom's in a much better place. Today, God went for a walk in his garden and picked his most beautiful rose to be with him. Be strong. Everything happens for a reason." Silver lining after silver lining was thrown my way as people with the best of intentions tried to make me feel less broken and devastated and traumatized by her decision to leave us. For years, I've carried that abandonment. When your mother takes her life when you're at such a young age, it shapes who you become and how you see the world. It makes the world a scary place, and it tells you how easily abandoned and rejected you can be. It makes the world something that you want to run away from. And the thing is that in that world of scariness that I felt, I've had to still keep searching because I've been angry with God. I've been angry with God's decision to pick his rose, for him to choose that heaven is a better alternative than being with me. And I've asked loads of questions that can't be answered, wondering why I wasn't enough to live for, what life would be like with her still here. What did she sound like? Hating myself for not paying attention to the way that she spoke, she laughed, she sang, just so that I could remember it. Why wasn't I enough to live for? Why did she do it? What were the last words I said to her before I left for school? 40 years have passed since that day, a day forever etched in my memory with feelings still as close to the surface as they were back then. And boy, oh boy, have I done the work. I think my therapy bills paid for my psychologist's house and car. I have looked at my mom's death from every angle. And after the years of searching and crying and healing and speaking and questioning, this is the realization that I've come to 40 years after her passing. Nothing happens for a reason. Why did my mother kill herself? Because she could. That may sound cold, but it's how I found peace after years of fighting with me, with her, and with God. You see, when that lady so glibly told me that everything happens for a reason, I must have decided to start looking for a reason. I searched everywhere. I searched in self-help books, in therapy, with priests and monks, and in deep introspection. And try as I may, I couldn't find a reason for her death. My mother died because she decided to. There was no reason for me. You see, power, that internal sense of strength that says I can face tomorrow, doesn't come from always looking on the bright side of life, especially when things feel like they're falling apart and may never be the same again. Power comes from surrender. Power comes from surrendering to our past, to let go of its power. I had to surrender to the fact that on the 3rd of June, 1981, my mother made a decision that would forever affect and change the trajectory of my life. The moment I felt it my most powerful was the moment I decided to surrender and accept, because power also comes from acceptance. I had to surrender to my past, accept her decision, and accept that what happened before her death and what has happened since her death up until today is just part of a tapestry of things that have happened in my life. And you have had things that have happened in your life that have wounded you deeply. A friend of mine used to remind me that we don't just sit next to a person, we sit next to a pool of tears. You have experienced things that have devastated and shattered you, and so has the person next to you. A part of all of us are deep, gaping wounds that long to be healed, questions that beg answering, and moments that feel completely out of control. But surrender is the decision to let go of control. Acceptance is the decision to be in control by accepting that things happen in our life that we can't control. Nothing happens for a reason. Things just happen. Things that turn your world upside down. And I can spend the rest of my days trying to find reasons, trying to find the lesson in her death, or trying to see myself as stronger because of what she did, but I choose not to. Because therein lies my freedom. I surrender. How? By saying 2 words. Oh well. My mother committed suicide. Oh well. I surrender and I accept. I accept that hard things happen along the way, that things don't go according to plan, that pain is just a school walk away. You see, acceptance is when we embrace a situation that's outside of our control and we see it without judgment, without asking questions, or without the need to find its reason or its lesson. Acceptance is when we choose to see that right now, this is where we are, right now, this is it, without feeling or wondering how it could be. And acceptance is not a passive activity. It's a strong, bold, resilient decision to say that what I am is what I am, and where I am is where I am, and who I am is who I am, even though parts of me may be battered and scarred. It's about accepting that this is our life as it is. I can spend the rest of my life trying to find reasons. I choose not to. When you expend energy looking for the reasons, you live in a world of unhappiness and less. Acceptance and surrender is when we live in a world of more happiness, more peace, and more control, because surrender is the one thing in life that we can control. You don't have to find the good and the bad things that happen in life. What you do have to find is the strength to continue, to go on with a heart of gratitude, with bold strength, resilience, to say that I can face tomorrow. You have to allow yourself to go on a journey of acceptance and surrender to what is and what has been. I forgot to add that my grandfather died a few hours before my mom on the same day. I lost her and my mom and found out about it a few hours apart. Oh well. I surrender to the events of that day. I choose to live in the power of acceptance rather than as a victim to circumstance. It never happened for a reason. Nothing has happened for a reason. Nothing happens for a reason. There's power in saying that. And while I do believe that a negative can have its positives one day, and I do believe that strength can emerge from something that once felt like it could destroy you, nothing happens for a reason, but it can work for good. But only if you allow yourself to go on the journey of acceptance and surrender, to surrender to what is and accept what has been. Thank you.